Listen to this episode if you are trying to figure out how to increase the overall profitability of your product based business. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, if you do not have a business that has profit that allows for your business to thrive, reinvest back into itself, your business is not built for longevity. Today, I want to dive into the financial side of things, how to really identify where people's problems are, as well as just, I want to talk about the common mistakes that I see people make, how to actually make sure that your business is profitable, as well as just common routines, habits, and things that you need to look out for. We might talk a little bit about pricing. We're going to talk a little bit about fixed cost, variable cost, all sorts of things that I talk to my clients about every single day, because profit at the end of the day is what allows your business to be healthy. My dad is a financial advisor. I have grown up with many entrepreneurs in my life, but my dad has always really helped me with a lot of the financial side of things. He actually comes into my programs and audits many of my clients' P&Ls at the end of the year, or will look at their profits. And he is an advisor within my business for my small business clients as well. And so I have been in the inside scoop of lots of financial conversations, as well as, having this conversation with hundreds of business owners. This actually was a question that was submitted by somebody from my Small Business Cafe, which is my completely free community for my podcast listeners to connect with each other, ask questions to be submitted for the pod, as well as to have just a better and greater support system within their business. You can click the link in the show notes and join if you want to ask me a question. This was submitted by Heather. She said, I struggle all the time with figuring out the numbers for my business. Got any suggestions on how to capture or compile all of the costs versus how much is made? How do I increase overall profitability? What do your clients often forget here? This is a great question, and I am going to dive into this today. I have a list of 7 major pieces, and we are going to kind of rapid fire through the major pieces you need to look out for, the major areas you need to make sure that you are watching, what we need to do on a more monthly, quarterly basis, what can be more annually, and some of the major mistakes. Before we do that, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. Welcome to the Small Business Growth Podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Madison Page. I help turn small businesses into brands that are built to scale, built to last, and built to grow. And in this podcast, I like to teach in this kind of fun conversational type of way. We're not stuffy or boring around here. This is a podcast that you can sit and feel like you're chit-chatting with a bestie, sitting at a coffee shop and just talking business. This is one of the biggest business conversations we can have. We are talking profitability, finances, and numbers. Now, I know that money can be a little bit of a taboo topic. It isn't in this corner of the internet. We are not being taboo around how much money you're making. We are not being taboo around what the profit is of your business. We're not even being taboo if you aren't seeing profitability at all in your business right now. I have seen it all, from people being down like $100,000 in their business one year. I've seen people that have 90% profit margins at the end of their year on their P&L. I have seen it on all ends of the spectrum. Have had all different types of clients, have seen all different types of levels of P&Ls, and these are some of the major things that I want you to know when it comes to finances. You hear me say P&L, which is a profit and loss statement. This is something that you have at the end of your year. Usually you can look at it and say, all right, at the end of the year, what did we profit? What did we loss? What is the kind of that overall net income that you have? Now, there's a lot of kind of like jargon things that we can talk about here. We can talk about, we have cost of goods sold, we have net cost of goods sold, we have operating expenses, we have income, we have net income, we have gross income, and they all mean a little bit of different things. What I'm going to do today is really simplify it into the things that you absolutely need to know. Now, to answer this question, again, this was submitted by Heather. One of her major questions is how do I know how can I capture or compile all of the costs versus how much is made in my business? Now, first things first, you should have some sort of accounting system set up. No matter how big or how small your business is, as a product-based business, you have a lot of expenses. You have your raw materials, your shipping, your production, all sorts of different things. You should have some sort of software like QuickBooks set up. I use QuickBooks for my business, or some sort of accounting software. If you don't have an accountant, at the very least, we want to have one of these. So what it does is it allows you to see every single month how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. We want you to be meticulous with your costs, with your expenses. We need to make sure that you are not going months and months without looking at this, no matter what stage of business that you are in. Because if you are just constantly kind of nervous to look at your numbers, not really wanting to dive too much into it, knowing that you're probably losing money, you are going to miss expenses. You are going to let it get out of hand, and you're not really going to know how to dive really deep into it. So first things first is I recommend having some sort of accounting software as QuickBooks, and it connects with your bank account. It can see what goes out and what goes in. If you don't yet have a business bank account, a business debit card, a business credit card, whatever that may be, that is a great place to start. I have a business credit card. I have a business checking account. I have a business debit card, and I kind of have a whole system set up for my financial side. We can talk about that in another episode, but you absolutely need to first separate your expenses and your income from your personal income if you haven't done that already. That is like day one of business. Open up a new bank account and making sure that it is completely separate. So when you link it to an accounting software, it's all there. Now, if you have that, if you're wondering what business credit card I recommend, send me a DM and I can send you a link, and I think you get some sort of discount or something. I know I have some sort of link. You can send me a DM and I can send you over that link from there. Next one is I want you to know how much your fixed costs are every month. This is if you made $0, if you made zero sales, what are you still paying for? A lot of them are subscriptions. It might be your website. It might be any hosting softwares, any fees that you have that are constant every single month, no matter how many sales you make, it does not change. You always have that. For me, I have my Zoom, I have my booking softwares, I have all sorts of different things that I know every single month. If I made $0 in my business, I know that I would be out X amount of dollars just because I have that on a recurring basis every single month. What this helps you with is realizing how much money you need to make, how many sales you need to make in order to cover your overall fixed expenses that are absolutely there every single month. I need you to know what that number is. The next one is I want you to really look at your pricing. If we're looking at profitability, I have this a lot in my business where people come to me and they say, Maddie, I sell out my collections, I sell out my launches, but my business isn't profitable. We have cash flow issues. This tells me that we probably have either a pricing issue or an expenses issue somewhere. This means we have one of two areas. First things first is pricing. We need to look at your pricing, and if you are selling out your inventory, you should be covering all of your costs based on that sold out launch. Having a sold out launch should cover your business for a long time within your inventory if your pricing strategy is actually mastered. And so what we have to do is we have to look at your pricing, and we have to make sure that you are accounting for all variable costs within your pricing. Variable costs meaning anything that changes based on somebody buying that. So that might be, labor. How much does it cost for somebody to make it? That's overhead, that's utilities. It's like if you are making one product, how much does it cost you? Not just your raw materials, not just your shipping materials, not just your production, whatever that might be. We're also looking at, what is the electricity that it took? What is the overhead, the rent, the utilities, the labor, all of that also goes into that pricing model. If right now you are not accounting for your labor in your pricing, or labor of the production or whatever that might be, if you are hand making a product, you probably do not have a solid pricing model out there, and you probably are not actually going to be as profitable as you absolutely can be. So we need to master the labor, the overhead, and the utilities. Now, this is going to look different whether or not you get a product manufactured and sent to you, or if you get a product that you are actually making through all of the raw materials. If you get something manufactured, though, I still want you to look at the shipping that it costs for you to get there, the sign-on fees that you have with that manufacturer. We need to look at how can we account for all of these different costs within the overall pricing structure, because we don't just want that to cut into our overall profit. This is why on TikTok, if I see somebody that outs a business saying, I know that they're getting this sweatshirt made for $12.99 on, on this website. I know that this Gildan sweatshirt costs them probably $12.99, and here they're selling it for $100. There are more expenses that go into just like that baseline $12.99. It's not just $12.99 at the bottom. At the end of the day, you have to account for all of the expenses. Now, do some people just like absolutely rack up a high profit margin? Yeah, 100%. A lot of businesses are. It actually, for me, it's tough seeing many industries. When I go out and shop, I always say my job kind of ruined shopping for me because I know how much things cost at the actual bare bones of the cost. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying like 5 times the actual cost of this product, but we're going to do it. But that has to be for your product as well. Do not be afraid to charge what your product is actually worth, covering all of your expenses. It's absolutely necessary. The next one is do not just look at your numbers once a year. You need to know the benchmarks within your industry for a specific product of your kind. So if you sell eyelashes, if you sell like eye masks, if you sell candles, whatever, I want you to look within your industry and like within your niche of the industry and look at the overall financial benchmarks. At a normal basis, what is that profit margin? Because a healthy overall like net profit margin of a company at the end of the day in your profit and loss statement is usually between 10 and 15%. And so right now, if that's like a general e-commerce brand, 10 to 15%, it's wonderful if you have a 25% profit margin, 30% profit margin, and it's even greater any higher than that. So what we are really looking at here though, if you make $100,000 a year in your business and you have a 5% profit margin, you only made $5,000 that year in your business profit. And so we need to know and be able to look at the different categories. How much did you spend on labor? How much did you spend on marketing? How much did you spend on cost of goods sold? And what is a benchmark within your industry so we can see where your overall expenses are. We can't just look at your numbers once a year because it can get out of hand. You can have subscriptions that you're not paying for, and all of a sudden you can realize you have this expense that isn't actually working and you just made a major mistake. So the two major ways when I see a business that is struggling with profitability, or I look at your profits in general, is I look at your overall pricing. Is your pricing accounting for all of your costs, as well as looking at your expenses? Are your expenses being like utilized within the benchmark within your industry? So sometimes I have people that spend very little money on marketing or advertising. Their advertising expenses are like $500, and that is like, 0.1% of their overall revenue within their business. To me, that tells me that they probably aren't reinvesting back into their marketing enough. They could actually spend more money there. Sometimes I see people using labor and 60% of their overall expenses was based on their labor. That is way too high. You're paying way too many people. We need to reevaluate what that labor comes from. So what we're really looking at here, whenever we talk about profitability, is I'm looking at your pricing model and I'm also looking at your expenses. And then we can kind of reevaluate which one needs to go up, which one needs to go down, where can we spend more, where do we need to spend less, and what really is the overall root of the problem. If your costs of goods sold is healthy, so you tell me my profit margin per item is 75%, 80%, 85%, whatever, yet your business profitability is low, and you're saying, yeah, but I'm also not making any money as a business owner, we have to look at your expenses, because that's telling me your cost of goods sold are within the benchmark. Your cost of goods sold are healthy. You have your pricing model situated for your cost of goods sold, but yet behind the scenes, you are actually utilizing your operating expenses too much that you don't actually have any healthy profit within your overall business. So far, we've talked about having an accounting software. We've talked about being very meticulous with the costs that you have within your business. We've talked about knowing how many fixed costs you have every month. So every month, you know how much money you need to make at a bare bones minimum in order to actually get all of your expenses paid. We also need to know if your pricing model accounts for the proper expenses. It can't just be costs of goods sold or raw materials. Some people are like, yeah, I do raw materials times 4 plus 10. And it's like, that is so arbitrary. We really need it to make sense. I also say to not look at your numbers only once a year. You really have to know your benchmarks and know where you are at within there. I recommend looking at a P&L quarterly so you can see how things are going, where you're at for the year, and how things look compared to last year. And if your cost of goods sold is healthy, yet your business is still not profitable, we really need to look at your overall expenses of your brand. Kind of going back to that example of, for you, if you are somebody that you sell out of your launch, let's say that you sell out a launch, you make $8,000, but yet you're like, that money is already accounted for. To me, that tells me we either have a pricing issue or that tells me that we have an expenses issue that we really need to tackle. Otherwise, your business is not yet growing. It hurts my heart how many times I have a client come to me and we look at their numbers and we realize their pricing model was not set up properly, that they were actually losing money every single sale. If you don't have a solid grasp on your financials, a major issue that people have is, how do you know what to do wholesale? How do you know what to discount? How do you know if you even can run a promotion? How do you know if you can even do wholesale? Because you don't know what your actual numbers are and if it actually makes sense within your business. Now I want to talk about one final thing before we kind of dive into the closing here, is understanding that working in your business is not growing your business. I see this a lot. One of the most common mistakes that people have is they first hire for production, then they hire for shipping, then they hire for people to basically make the product and ship it out, which is a great hire to do because those are things that you cannot be doing. However, if you are not hiring somebody, or you yourself have not taken on the responsibility of being the one that works on the business, you are going to struggle to grow. So what I see is, I see these companies that have many like team members throughout. They have the like founder, whatever, the founder that they have, that founder is kind of developing the product. They really are creating the new pieces. They might be managing the team, but that's about it. And then they have all of these production staff, yet nobody is really taking on the marketing side of things, yet nobody is really working on analytics, diving into what your numbers are all about, yet nobody is really working on growing the business, whether that be collaborations, brand awareness, visibility. How do we get in front of new people? How do we, really build the overall brand? You are going to struggle with profitability because you're keeping up with production, but you aren't keeping up with growing your business for the production staff that you have. If you have nobody working on growing your business, that needs to be a major priority, because something that I actually see is that people are like, well, my spending is within my benchmarks, but we're like ready for the business growth. I just can't get these sales to flow, yet nobody is working on their social media, yet nobody has looked at their website analytics to see where their major gaps are. That is what is necessary. Profit in a business is really telling of the overall health and longevity sake of how your business is going to operate. You need profit to be able to reinvest back into the business. You need profit to be able to hire people in the future. You need profit to be able to invest in more equipment, to be able to scale your production. You need profit to be able to make a major inventory order. If you get into Urban Outfitters or Anthropologie or some major brand out there, you need the capital to make those purchases. And so profit is necessary in business. So if you don't know your finances, odds are you might actually have a hobby that you are running all the time that really isn't making you much money. So if you don't have a handle on your finances, you need somebody within your team to have a handle on them. Whether that be you, whether you have an accountant, whether you have a financial analyst come in and be able to kind of look at everything and say, these are the issues, these are the things that we have. You need somebody to have a really good manage of your overall cash flow. I have clients who are more profitable making $150,000 a year in revenue than some companies making $1 million a year in their business. So meaning at the bottom line, I have clients that are at $150,000 in sales, profiting more money at the end of the year than clients that are making $1 million in sales in their revenue. what that means is that we need to be able to actually build a business with profitability in mind. There are different ways that you can grow that allow for you to have more profit at the end of the day, for you to have more sustainability, for you to be able to pay yourself more, for you to be able to hire more people, because profitability at the end of the day, it allows you to know when you can invest back into your growth. Now, at the end of the day, your business doesn't need $100,000 of profit. That also can mean that you have more money in order to invest back into your business. This is something I hear as well, as people are like, Maddie, whatever, I can't afford to work with you, or like, this doesn't fit into the budget right now. And I'm like, all right, what's your budget? And they're like, well, I don't really have a handle on my numbers to even know. At the end of the day, it's about being diligent with your numbers, because if you have a handle on your numbers, you know exactly what you can reinvest back into your business as well. In the beginning stages of your business, a lot of things are going to be reinvesting them back into the business. It doesn't mean that you need $100,000 of profit every single year in order to have a business with longevity. You need a handle on it. You need to be smart with it. You need to be diligent with it, so you know where you can reinvest back into your business. Yes, it's good to have kind of a little nest egg, or like a little emergency fund, or, a big inventory order fund, but you also need to know, all right, I need to make this money to be able to invest in these other pieces, to be able to, reinvest into this equipment, or to make this wholesale order, or whatever that might look like. We need to be smart with your finances. And if you're not, it's going to be a major piece of your scaling journey that is going to be tough. As a business owner, you need to step into this CEO role every time. And if this is something that you just cannot get behind, you have to find somebody within your corner that is going to manage your dollars, whether that's a financial advisor or accountant or whatever that might be. You need to have a solid measure of your dollars. Otherwise, it'll get away from you. And I see it happen all of the time. I hope that this was helpful for you. I could do hours and hours and hours of just talking about finances. I don't talk too much about it, even though it's something that I deal with many of my clients as we look at their P&L. I'm always looking at your pricing, looking at your profit margin per item, and looking at some of these kind of major numbers that we really need to know in order for the longevity and the health of your business. If you want more of this, please let me know. I always love to hear which episodes are really helpful for you, which episodes are eye-opening, and which episodes you would like me to dive more into. It makes me so happy when I hear from you, telling me you're loving the pod, telling me you want me to develop a topic. It is so incredibly helpful. This episode was a submitted podcast topic in my Small Business Cafe, which is my completely free community where you can ask me questions, you can gain support with other business owners inside, and we can dive deeper and you get bonuses, surprises, and extra support inside of there. Even sometimes I do some live coaching where you and I can actually talk about your business live inside of that. You can click the link in the show notes and join. I would absolutely love to have you. Otherwise, you can DM me Cafe on Instagram, and I might just answer your next question on one of my podcast episodes. One of the craziest things that I have seen is that 60% of you are not actually following this podcast, even though you come back each and every week for the episodes. Make sure that you are clicking that follow button. It helps me so much. It helps push this episode out to more people. It also helps you not have to search for it every single time that one comes out. It really does help get this information out there, help me get better information to be able to share with you, scale the production and everything throughout. So hit that follow button. Make sure that you are following us wherever you like to listen, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or Apple, wherever that might be. I hope that this financial conversation was really fun. Heather, thank you so much for asking this question. I hope that it was helpful for you. I hope that I answered all of your questions. The major place for you to start is just get a handle on it. I don't want you to you can do it in Excel, you can do it in a spreadsheet, but having some sort of QuickBooks, having some sort of system to it. I have a day every single month in my calendar that is kind of like a data analytics and finances day. It's one of my numbers days that I just sit down and I look at all of my finances. I kind of update my accounting. I look at my analytics on my website, see like what changes are making, how is it really working? And I recommend everybody do that. If you are running a business where you don't have a handle on your finances, you have to start. Having a business is all about finances, is all about the number side of things. And so just really understanding some of these key pieces is really going to help you be able to scale further from there. I hope this was helpful for you. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I will see you in the next episode.